Hello and welcome to Shite Talk, an Irish history podcast. I hope everyone's doing well as we're coming into December. It's kind of cold out, not as cold as usual, but it's kind of windy out, not as windy as usual. It's kind of raining out, it's not as raining as usual. It's not great, but it is. Dublin looks pretty in the winter, regardless of the rain and that. Everyone's pretty festive. It looks kind of cool out. There's cobblestones and other pubs too. But yeah, there's cobblestones and there's lights with fire in them, and there's Irish lads buying people pints at the bar and people doing, I don't know, Christmassy things. I don't know. But hey, if you feel Christmassy or festivey, that's what I'm meant to be doing now, plugging our live show in Whelan's, in the new venue, in the fancy little venue, Little Whelan's. Used to be Burke's back in the day, and now they've renovated it, new cool little room. We're going to be one of the first shows that are happening there. So tickets are already on sale. The link will be in the description of the podcast. It's probably too early to buy people Christmas presents. Like, buy them a Christmas present and it's a surprise. No one's going to be expecting it 11 days before Christmas, because that's when it is. It's the 14th of December. But then if you actually want to buy someone a present and hand it to them on the day of Christmas, or show them, I guess, you could buy a ticket to go to our gig in Belfast in March, the one we had to reschedule from the other week. So do that if you want. It's a nice holiday. You can go to Belfast, a cool city. And other than that, then same old speech as usual, but like, follow, Instagram, share, social media, fun, good times, sun, pints, history, crack. The Halfpenny Bridge Comedy Club, that's something. You go and see me and Kev do comedy at the Halfpenny, I guess. But yeah, just like, subscribe, rate, share, review, all those good things. And then if you actually feel like donating money, you can have access to all the behind the paywall stuff we have on our Patreon, only a $5 a month. And I think there's like nearly 50 episodes or close to it on the Patreon now. So loads of extra listening, and it helps us keep the lights on. But yeah, I think that's all the stuff. I can't beg anymore. Enjoy the episode about some weird old place, an island off the coast of I suppose another weird little old island. But yeah, enjoy the episode.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. The history and mystery of lads, lasses and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall. Follow me now as we go back in time. We trace the steps of Irish heritage to find. Jason from Carlo and Kevin and Dog guide you through the ways of Shite.
And I'm back on board with the Qataris.
Yes.
That's all it took.
They say what you will. It's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. I didn't record that part at the beginning, so for context for listeners, if we do keep it in, soccer fans in Qatar, the World Cup, they've outlawed English fans dressing as medieval crusaders, which is great.
That is very... Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with anything they're doing, but I do agree that they're doing it pretty funny.
Yeah.
To ban drinking 2 days before the competition, after, I'd say, 9 years and 362 days of negotiation around the subject, every couple of months, just a reminder, remember, just a bit. And just to be clear, we will be serving drink there because we're sponsored by alcohol. Also, no one cares about football. It's really just a medium for lads to drink. There will be pints there, right? Mm-hmm. And then at the very 2
For
days
sure, of course there is. Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
I mean, listen, why wouldn't there be?
We shook hands at it.
Now, because I'm not seeing any kegs go into the stadium. And I haven't seen one tap. There hasn't been one lad standing behind the bar, spitting into a glass, polishing it, asking me, how's the wife?
Well, did I show you the video of the English lads who were walking around and they were trying to find pints, and they're like, this is shit, can't fight, like, no crack now, they're already over there.
Yeah.
And they were into like the son of a sheikh.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, we've got loads of beer back in the gaff.
Nice.
And he brings him back, and then it just cuts to a lad playing with a tiger. He's just locked and rubbing a tiger, kissing it, going, oh, who's a good boy, who's a good boy. And you know what? Back on board with the English fans.
It's actually alright, yeah. Yeah, maybe it's like that.
Oh my God. Can you hear the guards?
Yeah.
Is that because I said something positive about the English?
I think so. Qatar, they're all coming in. It's like that episode of The Simpsons. That always used to make me feel bad when Homer's hopping around through time and he goes to one of the alternate realities.
The donut one.
The donut one. Yeah, and everything's great for him, and then there's no donuts, and it's raining donuts. And I was like, Homer, if only you'd stayed another couple of... Maybe it's like that. They're over there and it's like, there's no beer. This is outrageous. And then they're just walking down the street and it's like, wait, what have you got there? Oh, piles of opium.
Yeah.
Oh, and
we call this religious juice.
yeah, there's no beer, but it is the land of cocaine and opiates, which we're never coming home.
Well, neither is football.
There you go. It's good though. It's good.
Was it you saying that all the kids in the schools you're teaching in are singing pro-English songs?
Just the one school. It was an Irish school, a Gael school, and they were all singing. England were playing Iran, and they were all running around the school chanting English chants. 1 World Cup and 2 World Wars, England. And now they said it was a joke. Yeah. But actually, this will play into today's episode because it's about. We'll get into this bit at the end, but it's about anthropology and how do you find out the culture of a place. It's hard to find out what Irish people are fucking on about a lot of the time. And now they said it was a wind up, and they were just because all their teachers are like, Irish speaking secondary school teachers.
Yeah.
So obviously,
I find it pretty funny.
It is pretty funny, but then
it's actually fucking hilarious.
If it was true, because they'd be like, "Oh no, we're just," because I was like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "Oh no, we're just messing." But then they kept doing it when there was no one around. And I think they just know all the English football players from the Premier League.
And they know all the chants as well.
And they know all the chants. Like they haven't learned shame yet.
Like, not that I'll sing along with it.
Yeah.
But I will admit that Baile and Spencer saying 3 lines on the shirt, we're dreaming. That's pretty fun.
Football's coming.
If I was English, I would want to sing that, and it's a catchy tune. I'm not going to sing it.
I think it's fair. It's fair to say that 14 to 15-year-old kids know more about the British Premier League than they do about Irish history. That's fair.
I think they've replaced all the desks that people have scrubbed IRA with compasses. Yeah.
With
because that's how you learn properly.
Well, they know at that age you're allowed. You can have several different ideas in your head which don't make any sense at any age. We're all just like contradictions. You can love the British Premier League and the IRA, and you might not figure out that those two things are against each other.
Call me old-fashioned. I just love my 32 counties: Yorkshire, Shropshire, Cumberlandshire.
All the shires. On the 2nd of April 1920, John Cowan Messenger was born in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He got married at 27, earned his bachelor's degree from Lawrence University. Go Beavers. He became Dr. Messenger 10 years later in 1957 from the Northwestern University of Illinois. Fuck the Beavers.
Mm-hmm.
He became an instructor in African Studies and Social Sciences at Michigan State University. The Beavers are back.
Beavers are back.
Beavers are back. And he traveled around the world conducting ethnographic fieldwork. Spent a lot of time in Nigeria with a group called the Anag. Ethnographic, that's a new word I learned.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. Ethnographic.
Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse.
Exactly. Now he's into the Spider-Verse. So himself and his wife visited a little old place called Ireland in 1955. Just as tourists initially, but they decided to take their ethnographic studies into the Spider-Verse in 1957. So it was the year he got his doctorate, I guess. He was like, see what these people are up to. He'd been over and back to Ireland a few times since 55, but they were finally convinced to study there after they bumped into a priest at a Spanish ballet in Copenhagen who started telling them about the people of a certain island off the west coast of Ireland. They spent the night drinking brandy and smoking cigars with the priest, and he convinced them to go document the way of life on the island before it disappeared.
You said they ran into a priest?
Yep.
At a Spanish
ballet
in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
No national Irish priest? No.
I assume so, because he's big on he wants them to go to the island. But that's a priest all over.
do you
Like that, I don't know. The idea of like a demure man of the cloth. Like any priest I've met, like go into stupid cultural events. Well, not stupid cultural events, but you know, like they love going to like fancy cultural events, drinking brandy, smoking cigars, and bigging up the old country.
Rolling up the sleeve on their shirt to reveal an IRA tattoo and
Exactly.
saying "fuck the Queen."
Yeah.
And I'll dance on Margaret Thatcher's grave. Godfather Paddy was great crack.
The bulk of Messenger's research was done between 1959 and 1960. Him and his wife spent about 19 months living on the island. They paid several visits back to it over the following years so that he could finish his work. Inisheer, Isle of Ireland. Inisheer was a pseudonym that he used for the island to keep its anonymity.
So it just means small.
Means small island,
Small island,
yeah.
yeah.
Which I think that's come up in
A load of different
a
films.
load of them, yeah. Baile Sorry, Baile Beag is Philadelphia, Here I Come.
Ah, yeah.
Anyway, yeah. It's not I think a lot of people have stumbled upon Inisheer, Baile Beag. But he, covered it up a little bit because what he wrote about them, fairly in-depth study. He was there for like the good part of 2 years. It is very obvious which island it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he describes the island, like the geographic layout of the island.
They're all the same,
I
unless
know.
it has
There's-
a peninsula.
There's also
Does it have-
there's
does it
not
have a
that many islands. Like
Does it have a peninsula?
no.
All right. Am I gonna? Do I have to guess?
Well, I'll tell you this: the coordinates are 53 degrees,
Well, you're not
North.
keeping it a secret if you're given coordinates.
390
What's the point
degrees.
giving a fake name?
Well, it's also, actually, I don't even know how to read degrees. 53 degrees, 399, 53.399 degrees north, 9.897 degrees west. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
That's it. Also, the island's called Inisheer. But it's off the coast of Galway. The travel times are ferry.
But you're
twice
not
a
getting
day.
anything more from me.
Hey, listen, these people deserve a modicum of respect and anonymity, okay? Although, but I read the census data. So in 2011, the island had 43 people living on it. But when John was there, it was a bustling metropolis of 130-something people.
Okay.
Although he says it's 350 people, the census details are 130. I don't know. It could have been 350 between that and the surrounding islands. But I think he does most of his stuff on this Inisheer. Or maybe it's
Maybe
not.
there was a load of lads getting the dole somewhere else and living out on the island, and they're like, technically,
Oh.
the census is here.
We'll get into that in a minute. But so one of the areas of his study, one of the things that brought him out to the island was the idea of post-colonial nativism, which is what he was doing in Nigeria as well. So it's basically like what after a country's been colonized for ages, what's the culture then afterwards? And it's like the Gaelic revival that comes around in the late 1800s.
Two wars and one will come.
Yeah, exactly. How do you get rid of that from your schools? You try and you try. You force the school to speak Irish, and they're still singing British football chants
If they hadn't
100 years later.
if they hadn't have forced them to speak Irish, maybe they wouldn't be singing English chants.
Maybe it is just rebellion. But so it's a conscious attempt to revive. It's interesting because obviously it doesn't come back naturally because it's been gone for so long. So whoever is in charge, you sort of cherry pick bits of it, and then like what comes back, what doesn't, what works. Yeah, so he's going over to study the nativist movement, the revival of an indigenous cultural identity after the English fucked off. Of particular interest because it was a Gaeltacht region. It was one of the few places left where people spoke Irish fluently. Do you remember, were you there during the week when we were flying for the Halfpenny Comedy Club, which you can check out 4 nights a week? At some point we were talking to someone from France, I think, and she was like, yes, the Gaelic language. It's talking about Gaelic. So yes.
She was saying, you have bad breath.
That's what we speak, the Gaelic language, yeah. So in the mid-1800s...
That's why Bram Stoker did Dracula.
Exactly. It's a bad place for... but in the mid-1800s, there were only a quarter Irish speakers. In the mid-1800s, only a quarter of the country spoke Irish, so around 1.5 million people. By 1910, it was just over 500,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we know a lot of them were lying because That's just what we do.
That's pretty much. I don't know any Irish.
It'll bits of it will
If-
come back to you.
Yeah, but it's not enough to be like even if someone's like, oh, how do you say I went to the shop? I'm like, I know it's shuppa and
Yeah.
goodie, but like I'm gonna get the syntax wrong.
Yeah,
It'll
I
end
don't
up-
think I ever knew the grammar.
No.
No, because I've tried to learn it a bit over the last few years. Duolingo for a while, you know.
Mm.
And the words, the vocabulary does come back to you a bit. You're like, oh, I remember all the colors and the days and the words for stuff. The syntax and the structure, past like tenses and stuff. I don't think I ever properly knew that. I used to just stick like on or are in like you sort of make up sentences, and I think they just gave up correcting us at some point.
Yeah, mocha knee locked. I'm
It's-
more of an Americano man myself.
Hey. So he's going over there to study, like, this is a Gaelic region. So I don't know, he talks about like films and plays. I'm not sure what was set up, but I guess at that point there was a sort of romanticized.
This is 1959.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to think what was the Quiet Man shot then?
Maybe.
Like in and around like that.
Yeah.
Side. Well, like what was Philadelphia Here I Come was what 1970
Probably later.
later.
But I think
Right.
that's kind of. The Quiet Man's probably more accurate because he's saying around that time there's a sort of cultural. People in America can't get enough of like rural Irish kind of just speaking the language, simple farming life, and like that's all the buzz. And there's a tourism boom at the time around Western Ireland, and that's what people think of rural Ireland. But when he got there, he was like, there's kind of the idea that they can't speak English. But when he got there, he found out that everyone over the age of 8 on the island is taught English and they can speak it fluently. He said that this wasn't a well-known fact for a few reasons. One, because the government was paying the school to teach in Irish and keep Irish alive.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as they were concerned, fucking no English being spoken on the island. He said that in general, when he was talking to people like the church, the older islanders, they all like agreed that English was bad. But again, they all spoke it. But like if you ask them, they're like, oh God, no. It's a terrible, filthy foreign language. But it was also like, well, no one spoke. And this is the thing that's going to come up a lot in this anthropological study. Something that John Messenger, an American man, had to wrap his head around. The concept of what he called good old-fashioned codding, which he described as jokingly misinforming people. But as we would know, it's just fucking lying for the crack.
Was this just in relation to not speaking English?
No, it comes up a lot, but this is the first time I was so I found this book and I read through it, and it is fascinating because it's all stuff that we kind of like, you know yourself, the old Irish coddly. But imagine going back to the 1950s and you're a scientist trying to study people, and after a while you're like, wait, hang on, you just told me this, and I've just because he says he witnessed people telling tourists and foreigners on the island that they don't speak English, but it's like you all speak English. And they're like, yeah, but sure, you know yourself. But as from an anthropological point of view, just trying to wrap your head around, like, sometimes they just lie. Not for badness or to gain anything. Not for monetary gain. Just for the fucking devilment.
Hey, look. Next time you're on a bus for an hour and a half with no headphones,
Yeah.
just start lying to the person next to you.
Well, we were talking about that the other day. If your phone was dead and you're on the bus with nothing to do, just hold it up to your ear and start trying to have the most interesting conversation, just to keep the other people entertained. Not again, Sean. I can't be. Sure, the fucking last one took us 6 hours to bury. I don't care what he called you.
But I have like a note for on stage of all the different Waterford people I've heard on the bus when I eavesdrop, and they're great conversations. What if they are just taking the piss?
What if they are? What if their phone's dead again? They're like, well, I'm just going to talk into this, and it'll just keep everyone entertained.
Well, in fairness, that last lad definitely had it on because he had it on loudspeaker and I could hear his wife replying.
That's what everyone needs to do in a bus. If you're having an interesting conversation, just be decent. Turn it up. So, yeah, that comes into play a lot. He's trying to like account for the fact that a lot of people might just be lying to him because it's funny. The people on the island at the time were mostly subsistent farmers, just growing crops for themselves. He kept calling them peasants, but he also acknowledges that they don't like that term. He doesn't stop using it though. But this is the first quote. The widespread peasant trait of dependence together with hostility towards the government is most pronounced on Inisheer.
This is 2019 or
this next paragraph, when you came in here the other day and I was just laughing and saying like, you love this now, this could have been written today. There's most of this stuff. But I thought, I'd never heard it described like that, but just we'll get into it now. But so he asked them about their antagonistic views toward the government. He said the islanders cite most often the commonplace nepotism and corruption practiced by functionaries, the slight difference between the platforms of major Irish parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, the promise made by politicians which seldom are kept when they achieve office, the misapplication of programmes once implemented, the inadequate of government services, the burden of increasing taxation and inflation, and foolish government projects implemented in Inisheer, more often than not implemented without consulting the islanders. They were annoyed particularly of the increase of taxes on stout and tobacco and the price of imported turf. At least the government fixed that one. At least there's no turf now.
Yeah, they've banned that.
Yeah.
Now, this was 1959.
Yeah.
It's
amazing.
Eerie.
Yeah. Inflation. It's for fucking the taxes gone up on stout and tobacco again. And sure, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, they wrote the fucking same.
I suppose, like, it just shows you've not fixed any of those things, but also they're not, like...
Turf's illegal.
Turf's illegal, and people aren't happy about it.
Yeah.
That Joe Duffy episode I was listening to.
No.
Well, actually, I don't think it was Joe Duffy. That's many Dubliners, right?
Yeah.
But there's an old man from Tipperary just calling in going, why can't I burn my own turf?
You can burn your own turf.
Yeah, they still don't like it.
I know they don't. I just want to burn my own turf. Well, no, to be fair, you can dig your own turf and you can burn.
Well, I want to burn someone else's.
I just want to fucking sell it. Yeah, you should go out. I was out in Achill Island and it's like it's a big production. It's like turf piles up and down. There's probably a name for that now that'll be shot for not knowing. But there's turf piles all up and down the fields. Like this is just for yourself, is it? To get you through the winter, right? I mean, all this stuff, it's great, but it's all just like. So they complained about road improvements made where they're not needed and not made where they are needed. They wanted a new school in Jetty, and in fairness, the government built them, but they put them in the wrong place, and they didn't consult the islanders.
About what? Like where the school should have been?
About winds and tides. But also, like, there's no way that if they asked them, they'd all fucking disagree.
Anyway, yeah.
Like, there's...
but like, that's the funny thing. Obviously, you'd think I'd be more annoyed at the fact that all of these things are 60 years ago,
yeah,
and it's all the same. They're just complaints that people all over the world have about everything.
It's because they're just generic complaints. Oh yeah, or the government. But like, so far it's like
is
the government
inflation
aren't doing
a thing?
enough.
It is, yeah.
Do you have to spend tax money? Yeah, I don't like that. No matter how much it is. Sure, I don't know what the tax would have been on stout and tobacco then, but it's probably fuck all.
They built a school. Boo.
Well, in the wrong. No, but so already they're like, yeah, sure. The road. They have to fix the wrong roads. They're not fixing the right roads. The roads that they fixed, you're not complaining about because they're fixed.
But also the people who are living there probably did want them fixed. But
yeah,
that means is people going, they didn't fix the road outside my house.
Why did they fix that road with no potholes, and then this one with potholes is over here? So, well, that one used to have potholes. Why isn't this one fixed? And then they're complaining that they need new schools and jetties. And then later on I read it's like they did build them, but they were given out that they're in the wrong place. But they're all insane. Like, sure, if you build, there's no way you keep everyone happy.
No.
Like, sure, no, they never asked me. I didn't want the school over there. I wanted it too. Yeah. Sure, the fucking winds come in.
But it's like we talk about prisons, or even dumps.
Yeah. The people don't want them.
Yeah, everyone's like, we need more. They're like, well, how about we build one 10 miles from you? Well, 10 miles is pretty close.
That's pretty close. What if there's a prison break? I've seen season 2. That's not for me. So he goes on to say, Inisheer listed 76 various government schemes that the islanders availed of, from the widow's pension to children's allowance to Irish language subsidies. Almost all of the islanders were on the dole.
It sounds like a great island.
Messenger said none of them felt any shame about it, saying the government has a right to give us the dole. One of the so like he lists out 7, they're all like, and what did they do? Nothing. And they're up there. They wouldn't even know what's happening on the island. Is it, well, what?
What is happening on the island? Fuck all.
Nothing. But he said, like, this is again another contradictory thing, because the whole thing is like that they're proud, like, the proud individual island people that just don't need nothing for anyone. But he said they all got hooked on like the Irish subsidies. So they're getting paid to teach in Irish. And they just sort of rely on that, and then the dole money, and they're all just like, and he lists out all the different subsidies that they're doing. They're getting grants for everything. And they're like, and they don't even, and you're finna fall and finna gale. One's worse than the other. Would you like a kick in the right cheek or the fucking left cheek? You know what I mean? So what about all this money you're
paying
getting?
taxes? What are you paying tax on? Everything's a handout.
So one of the subsidies he saw people have an issue with was the old age pension, which is called the old age.
What was it back then?
I don't know.
52.
50. No, well, there was a new law. I think a newish law. I don't know when it was passed, but it was required that people, if they wanted to avail of the old age pension, they needed to have their will sorted by. They needed to leave any of their land in a will by the age of 70.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to have that written away. The Owl lads didn't like that at all.
No.
And we'll get into this later on, but 70 to these people is middle age. You don't hit old age till 80.
Okay.
And lads did not like the idea of signing away their land at 70. And it's not signing away, it's just having a will so that when you drop dead, there's not yet another family feud over who gets your farm.
Yeah. But should that keep the town talking?
It would. And sure, what am I fucking signing a will for? I'm only 72. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
You'd be worried that some lad's going to come and off you.
Yeah.
As soon as that
As
will
soon
is
as
done,
that's down, you're a target.
Yeah.
But basically the government was like, yeah, if you want to keep getting this pension money, just tell me where your land is going to go when you die. And the lads were not happy with that. They're also annoyed because the government people tended to ask soft questions about money being sent back from the States. And they thought that would affect their dole. They're like, oh, fucking, that's no business of yours.
You're getting remittances and the welfare and the grants and everything. This is great.
Yeah. I never heard the term remittances. But that showed up in this a bit, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a common one. Well, maybe not. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, yeah, but it's basically just money back from...
from the States.
From the States and
or Australia places as well, and it was always...
wherever their sons and daughters are gone. But they didn't like that. So what businesses... that shouldn't factor into the dole at all.
Yeah. It shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
That's a gift from family.
The government has the right to give me that money. I don't know. Now
did you say that earlier as well? That said the government have the right to give the people the money, not the people have the right to get money from the government.
No, sure, they should be paying it.
Yeah.
Look at all the fucking roads they fucked up.
Look at all the work that they're doing.
Look at all the work. And the school's in the wrong place. I should get paid. To spawn them the arrogant. You know what I mean? I don't know. I love the just lads out in the island. Now, like, they're not fucking driving around Rolls Royces and they're not living, like, fancy lifestyles. But he does definitely paint a picture of people who are angry at the government, annoyed that they're not doing anything, and if anything they do, they fuck it up. They're just interfering, making them pay taxes, just a pure nuisance. And then also, loads of money, and them getting angry about not getting enough money. Mm-hmm. So all the subsidies they also complain aren't enough.
Yeah, that's kind of still the same way now.
Is it?
But it's weird because they've just gave too much money out.
Yeah.
That it doesn't make it viable for people. And obviously, wages should increase in the country and everything else, but like, it's not viable for a lot of people. It is viable, but like, a lot of people don't want to work because they're like, well, I can get like 300 a week basically between all these, like, get your accommodation, you get 200 quid a week, you get all these access to different grants and so many things. Or you can go work a menial job and get like 400 quid a week.
Yeah.
That they're like, yeah, if you raised the price of what people get paid, less people might be on the dole, but also probably not. It's how long have we had the welfare in Ireland?
Yeah,
it's a legitimate,
but it's a funny thing.
It's a job in itself.
It shows up on angry Reddit forums a lot where people are like, I'm here working every day of the week and just fucking make ends meet, and then fucking one down the road just got handed a house by the government.
Yeah.
But then the argument always is like, well, why don't you just go on the welfare then? If you're so annoyed about it, why don't you just fucking do it?
Yeah. Fair play to anyone who can stay on it long term and not get depressed.
Yeah, exactly, because it's not exactly a fucking happy lifestyle. Well, so this is another factor, but I suppose he also documented, so I think there was a general or a local election.
No, let's get into the welfare problem in Ireland.
But it is a sad existence. It's
not
all happy and fun times.
But in Europe, they're like, they look at Ireland like, this is a fucking weird little fairy country where they're just handing out money to everyone to do nothing.
Yeah, but that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
We talked about the government artist bursary. If the government just gave us a fucking little bit, we'd have to stop annoying our fans to go to Patreon and subscribe and give us money. is that we can pay rent.
Yeah, we cried a little last week about how no one's given us any money, and a few people gave us some money.
A few people did. That was nice. I feel like, a few people felt guilty about that. Well, anyway, right. Well, this is the other half of the coin. Well, I don't know. He documented that only about a third of the eligible population voted in local elections, and with the majority of those votes going to Fianna Fáil, because like Dev, they knew who he was, basically. Like he describes them talking about him a bit, and he says that the Islanders described him as being cute in quotations, which basically just means he's crafty. A fucking crafty.
Yeah.
And they're like, basically the sentiment I got from it was that like, he's a bastard, but better the devil you know.
Better to have a bastard in charge.
Listen, you'd want him on the inside rather than the outside,
Yeah.
pissing in. I think the general idea was like they knew he had brand recognition and they liked how he was sort of known.
Yeah, they liked how the end of his name sounded like the IRA.
Yeah. So, but they complain about the government, and then every time it came to vote, they'd be like, Dev's not a bad old sort. He's cute, but sure, they did fix that road once. It was the wrong road, but fair play to him.
It's odd that even in like 59 that people have been saying Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, sure.
I know,
two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. But sure, at that stage they've been around for.
But Fine Gael only got in fucking like 2000 and what?
No, they would have been around. Like
They
Fianna
were-
Fáil were the major.
They were
party.
around, but like when we were growing up, it was Fianna Fáil for like decades.
Yeah, but I guess the idea is like, sure, what, you fucking vote for one? And then, well, Labour was also around, but they said no one voted for Labour on the island.
Yeah,
But
makes sense.
the only difference between the two parties was the Civil War, which even in the 50s was like, sure, that happened almost half a century ago. It's not important anymore, really. I mean, it is obviously still very important to this day, and I'm not going to vote for them bastards what did that thing in the document 100 years ago. But yeah, no, I thought that was very funny that they're like, specifically like, there's no difference between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. What am I meant to do? But like, that's just the litany of reasons not to get involved in politics is the exact same on an island 60 years ago as it is now, which is very sure. And when they promise stuff, and when they get in, do they do it? I don't know, because I checked out, to be honest. But I'm sure they don't. So Messenger also writes, anti-government feeling is but a part of a much broader anti-authority feeling that extends to the clergy, high-status folks, and even to parent-child and sibling relationships within the family. It has been for many centuries a component of Irish basic personality structure and has had momentous repercussions on the course of Irish history.
Yeah, because it's not.
But that's true of any country.
No, but specifically.
Well, parents, that siblings and children and parents argue, and that it's.
I know that's going to be a thing,
Yeah.
but just like the anti-authority thing.
Yeah,
because even I remember like chatting to my dad recently enough about it. There was some documentary about the guards wrongfully charging some lad about a murder from like fucking years ago. But basically, you had, if you're from, I suppose the city was probably the same, but like down the country years ago, it was. You hear people talk about the church, and they're like, fucking bastards, and you couldn't do it, and they had fucking cons. And then the guards are like, fucking bastard, couldn't do it. Everyone, it was just like, you were getting it from every angle. Everyone had power and authority, and they were abusing them, and you couldn't do anything about it, and you had no way of making money and getting out. You were just kind of fucking stuck.
That is very much what like this is what he wrote about. Because I get the idea, and again, this is at the start, the sort of diddly eye version of Ireland, where people in America, especially probably Irish emigrants, have been over there a couple of generations, and they're looking at, your grandparents went over in the famine, and now it's the mid 1900s, and the world's full of world war and nuclear bombs, and everything's very scary, and you're looking at films of the old country, and they're just good, religious, faithful people. But then when you go back, it's like, they hate the church. They're very spiritual, and they're scared shitless of the church and damnation, but they do not like the power structure, and they do not like being told what to do by the priests. But they also can't. They don't want to speak out against them because they're extremely terrified of eternal damnation.
Yeah, you can't do anything. I remember my dad was telling me years ago about, I think instead of going to play a GA match, him and some of the lads went to go like tin beat.
Yeah,
because they wanted to get paid instead of doing that.
Sure.
And then the priest went hunting for him and found him and like bet the shit out of him.
Yeah, that's
to go and like, you don't have to play. Yeah. You're not legally forced to fucking play an amateur game, but you are.
But it's part of the cultural Gaelic revival, and that's the other thing. I mean, we'll talk about this later on, but they're afraid of eternal damnation and the spiritual aspect of going against the church. They're also afraid of the very real power of getting the shit kicked out of you, or like what the powers that the priests have in communities that can just fuck you over.
Yeah, like teleportation and stuff.
Exactly. You get fucking Jesus after you. But we'll talk about the guards in a minute as well. But so the general power structure in the island, led by the priest, the curate, the headmaster of the school, who was also picked by the priest, and the king. Do you ever come across King of Islands?
No.
I don't
I know
how,
the king of the town, but that's...
Yeah, it's kind of that. So...
He's just a representative. Just is like the Pope, but for the crack.
Yeah,
he's the crack's representative on Earth.
I think it seems to just be like an old style Taoiseach, like the tribal leader. It's not a position that's passed from. It's not hereditary. It's just. I don't think there's a vote. It's just sort of decided that this person is the leader of the island.
Yeah,
but not in any sort of. They can't pass laws or anything. They're sort of the moral.
The Alf Stewart.
The Alf Stewart, the father figure that gets things done. My friend Aoife was telling me like years ago that her grandfather was the king of Tory Island. I don't know how common it was, but it seems like the islands just had just sort of a figure.
King of the Tories.
King of the Tories.
Did you ever go to a King of the Town competition?
No.
My buddy Ian lost years ago, and then he was so heartbroken because I think he probably should have won.
Yeah,
and he didn't. And he had his first pint of Guinness. After he was teetotal until then.
Wait, hang on. I don't know much about him, but if he's not drinking pints of Guinness, I don't recognize him.
That's the thing. He realised the folly of his ways.
Yeah.
He's like, if he just had a couple of pints in him.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he hadn't had his first pint. It was great. He had half of it. It had gone yellow. He couldn't finish it. He just kept saying, God, it was so heavy. And he was falling around the place. He turned around to one of our friends' girlfriends and he pushed her hair back behind her ear and said, did I ever tell you how beautiful you are?
After half a pint.
Yeah. Oh, it was such a night.
He's king in my heart.
Yeah.
Fair fucking play.
We were looking around the pub going like, you're telling me that this man isn't the king of the town? It's your man who's gone home after winning. Is that who it is? I don't recognise that
coward.
King.
But it's hard to... Yeah, that seems to be the... Because, the king... Just a charismatic man about town. Well, actually, like a cute whore. Just seem to be able to get things done, but not necessarily the best person for the job. You know, just the, what do you call it? The sort of strong man figure.
Strong man.
There's probably a better term for it, but like not necessarily your Trumps, your Putins. Not necessarily the best man for the job, or a man you're like, well, he seems like he'll fuck over the rest of them.
Bertie.
Yeah. You're Dev. Just a smooth operator. Yeah, a man who'll get stuff done. But I don't know. So Messenger said he couldn't really get much information on like the role of the king because the king wouldn't talk to him.
He didn't speak English.
He didn't speak English. He didn't like the idea of the messenger. But so the king, he ran the local shop. He got a lot of people's supports during the 1930s depression by loaning out money without interest, which is pretty sound. He does a lot of dealings for people on the mainland.
Was the shop also the pub?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was 2 shops in the island, so he ran one. So like he's seen as doing, like, men would go to him to do business on the mainland because they saw him as being like just a good operator. Okay. He'd get good deals. Mm-hmm. But he handles all the checks, exchanges money. He does a lot of financial stuff for the people of the island.
Has he been fleecing people without them knowing?
No, but he's kind of, even with the lending the money after the recession, is kind of like, now you're in his sphere of influence. So he's kind of like, oh yeah, you were going for another king. Remember that time I gave you money 50 years ago? I bet you shut the fuck up. And then the fact that he also controls a lot of the money, the checks cashed and like all that sort of stuff, he knows what money people have. So then going back to the earlier affair, if maybe someone was to tell the dole how much remittance you're getting in, that could not go well for you. So maybe you are also in my camp now.
I know the local lad back home, every time he has to run, he brings it up to my dad that he bought a leather jacket off him 30 years ago.
Exactly.
Maybe 40 now.
Yeah.
But like a long, long time.
Yeah.
And he still brings it up, and dad's like, well, do you know what? In fairness to him.
That's exactly it, yeah. So, well, he did sort me out with that thing in the 30s. So I'm dyed in the wool. A lot of people did respect him, but others saw him as a gone bean.
Yes,
Another phrase.
what a name.
I love all these phrases and quotes from him. It's like a gone bean. So he's supposed to be the sort of moral guardian of the island. And again, I don't know if that's self-appointed or that's part of the role, but a lot of people saw him as like, so he doesn't like women coming into the shop, which, as you said, is also a pub. Like, shop is a sort of general term where it's like a bank, a grocery, a pub. So he doesn't like women coming in to buy things when there's men drinking, because they could see the men drinking. The men drinking could see them.
All of a sudden, population's doubling.
Mayhem. So,
But hold on, that's what you're meant to do is... I said not you're meant to do. Back in the day, it was a common custom, however wrong it was. Do you have any places like this in Dundalk, or else maybe it's too modernised now? There was a place in Bagnallstown that had Lawler's, the shop, had a bar in it back in the day.
And they had the swinging doors.
No, it was just over there. And like, seemingly back in the day, women would come in to do the shop, and the lad would go up to the bar and sit down and have pints as she's doing the shop.
Oh, yeah.
And then she'd come back up and he'd pay for the pint and all the food.
That seems like, that is the
It's a
system.
couple thing to do. It's a nice Friday night.
But usually, you ever see the bars where there'd be like a divider? Like, I think Kavanagh's has it, the Gravediggers.
Yes.
There'd be like saloon doors. So the first bit would be the shop, and then the men would go in behind the barrier to drink, so that you wouldn't be able to see the debauchery that was happening in there. Men just drinking pints of Guinness and murmuring. But you can't explicitly say, not even in those times, you can't be like, women are banned. But what he used to do is the women would come in with the shopping lists. He'd start reading them out loud in earshot of all the men drinking at the pub. Just embarrassment. And then start asking them questions about the family very loudly. So to this day,
what did he think was going to happen?
What would happen is they'd send the kids in. So they'd send children in with messages.
But why couldn't men and women be in the same?
We'll get into that now in the next section, but
You've said that 3 times now already.
I know, you keep jumping ahead of all the sections. But the reason this paper is very famous, the reason I came across it anyway, is it basically paints, or Messenger says that this is one of the most sexually repressed places in the world at the time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's kind of, they don't want women to be exposed to men when they're in their cups. They don't want men to be drinking half a pint of stout and then going, Jesus, there's a woman buying stuff, and then hopping over a barrier and running at her.
Uh-huh.
Just, yes. They're very weird.
You think half a pint of Guinness turns an Irishman into a zombie?
Yes.
A sexually frustrated zombie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It literally does. In the right conditions. But, which will happen on this fucking island.
I just want some head. Some head.
But he basically just orchestrates it so that they send the children in. Because I guess he's fine, like children being in a pub. That's grand.
That's grand.
You don't want grown women in there. They might get ideas.
That sounds even worse than a remote island off the coast of Ireland that they're like, no, women can't come into this pub. Send the young girls in instead.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if it was young men or young girls, but also his detractors, the people who were, the people who didn't like the king, they said that he wanted the children sent in there because it's easier to shortchange them or bamboozle them when he's giving back the money.
Yes.
And some of the owl lads drinking also said he used to do that when... they'd be a couple of pints in. You wake up the next morning, you'd be going through your money, you'd be like, that's not as much as I should have.
Mm-hmm.
Not accounting for the fact that they were probably locked and spent more than they thought. He's shortchanging them, but he's one of the power figures, the king. So he's kind of...
Dave Mary's that happened.
Huh?
There was an old lady at Spar yesterday down the road when I went, and there was 2 people in front of me, and it took 5 minutes for them both to get served. They were both probably like 70 odd, 80 something. I forget. I'm bad now at ages of old people. They were probably like 80 something because they seemed half crippled.
Yeah.
But there was a lady just going like, I don't want my change, please. And the Brazilian fellow behind the counter was like, I've given you your change. Your receipt is in your hand. I've given you the change. She's like, but where's my bag? You haven't given me my bag of groceries yet. And I could see they were at her feet. And then he was like, I don't know what to tell you. I've given you and she's like, I haven't got a bag. You haven't given. Oh no, there it is now. And it was a full bag of groceries.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she was like, "Oh, grand. And what was the change again?
Yeah.
And then the manager had to come over and they'd explain it all. She's like, "Good, just to make sure." But a solid 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
It's
the same thing of when we were talking about that old man on the bus. You were saying the other week of the bus driver who wouldn't start driving the Dublin bus until the old man got all the way to to his seat at the very back.
Yeah,
right. He's probably taking the piss.
Yeah,
probably not. But also, I'd
could
like to
be
think
actually. Yeah,
I'll be doing that when I'm like 80. I'm just like, what if I just? Oh no,
that's the anthropological study as well. We're looking at old people and being like, God, they're all like this now. You're not taking into account that when we're old, you just be like, yes, and what was the change again? Is that in sterling pounds or what's euros?
Just hand them over a handful of Haribo.
Yeah, you keep that for yourself now.
Being old is going to be great.
It's going to be great.
Not washing myself.
Well, so here's one of the notes you brought up earlier on. The guards, the shades, the Gardaí Shikaroni. There's no guards in the island.
Great. Not even one.
There's 3 on a nearby island who visit once a month to sort stuff out if they need to.
Why aren't they just dividing up?
Easier life in the other island, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. You think it would just be just to say you have one guard. They don't have to do their job. They can just let everyone away with everything.
Well, they say there's no crime on the island because everyone kind of judges each other, I suppose. But
apart from the king fleecing everyone.
No, he just keeps track of everything, just in case. But the reason there's probably no guards in the island is because they don't like the guards when they show up.
They hate authority.
They say messenger witnessed them like they ridicule the guards when they arrive in plain clothes to look for unlicensed dogs.
Wait, who cares about?
That was a big thing back then. Dog licenses. It's like a TV license back there now. But like also undercover guards at festivals looking for drugs. You just imagine like lads, guards. A man you've never seen on the island suddenly shows up in like Oakley's and a North Face jacket and starts walking around looking for dogs. Like, how about you fuck off back to the mainland there, chief?
What is the 50s equivalent of like a super dry zip up?
Yeah, I don't know. Just like a tweed jacket and a farmer's hat. Like some countryman, some guard stationed up in Temple Bar going over to the island for looking for unlicensed dogs. Here, man, how are you getting on? Any dogs? I was looking for a couple of illegal dogs myself. I don't know. Is that a Kavanagh story or what? All the people in the village were quite shook because there was a new guard on the scene, and it was said that he could smell an unlicensed dog from half a mile. But old fucking John, he wasn't worried because his dog could smell a licensed inspector from 2 mile. So he was sorted. So they're not fans of authority. This is, again, when I was reading through this, I was like, this could be as true today as it was when it was written. Messenger said the outlads used to always get annoyed whenever they'd hear stories of like a putcheen still getting found on the mainland and knocked over. They'd talk about the poor creatures just trying to make an honest bit of drink. And would they not leave them alone? Oh, isn't it terrible? My dad was telling me the other day he was getting a haircut in Dundalk, and he said this conversation stretched out over 15 minutes. But someone was talking about going down to the pub and meeting up with someone who'd been away out west or something, and they had a few drinks, and they stayed there until about 1 o'clock, and they were tipping home in the car. It was only after a couple of drinks. And what did they see? On a Tuesday night, in the mouth of Christmas, a Gardaí checkpoint. And this went back and forth, and they were like, had they little to be at? If they're not on a Tuesday, and leading up to, and after the years we've had in COVID, and the bar doing a bit of business, and them out, that's scandalous. That's scandalous. The poor creatures, and on a Tuesday, leading up to in the mouth of Christmas, outrageous. It's just like you said, there'd be a pause of like half a minute, and one of them would be like, shocking. After the COVID, no,
that's miserable now.
And the bars closing left, right, and centre. On a Tuesday.
They haven't
little to be at.
Having the heart between them.
Having the poor creature.
Yeah. Well, who was I talking to the other day that, so maybe it was one of the Americans that who were in the club, but someone was like, drunk drive, and like, we've like checkpoints. Like, that's not a thing in most other places. That's just like, oh, we're driving down randomly, just going to stay on this road and catch everyone who's coming down. In America, it's pretty much unless you hit someone or knock in,
Yeah.
you're grand.
I remember seeing a video, I don't know what state it was in, but it's like some lawyer guy. He just puts his phone down. It was a checkpoint in some American road. And he just puts his phone down. He's like, yeah, if you just don't say anything, they can't stop you. And he put his phone down, and the guard just like asks him a series of questions. He just doesn't respond to any of them.
That
He just waves them on.
can't be right.
Doesn't seem right. And everyone in the comments was like, woo, freedom. This question is just basically like, have you got a are you able to drive this vehicle? Are you drunk? He's like, yeah, just ignore it all. They can't do anything.
Surely they could make you... Maybe they're not legally allowed to get you out of a car.
No, that's your fucking right, brother. That's your property. I'll try and find that and it was either he kept saying the same phrase over and over again. I think he just said nothing and like just stared dead ahead. It's like they can't legally make you do anything.
Damn. Well, because I know they can't legally make you blow into a breathalyzer.
Yeah.
In the States, and that's why a lot, and maybe the same here as well. But I also know that here, whatever your legal limit is what gets taken at the station.
Yeah.
Because I do know a man who got
yeah.
put into the back of a van, but instead of like them just doing one, like a trip for every single person, they were waiting until the van got busy enough. He wouldn't mind a bit wasting the petrol.
God, no, come
and
on.
He was well over the limit. And then by the fact that they wait around like 2 hours to get a few other people and drove them down, got off.
Yeah, it was like, can I have a pint of water there?
And coffee on the go.
Yeah.
Do you have a handful of pennies by any chance?
A cup of sand. But so on the island, the derogatory they refer to the guards as peelers.
Nice.
Yeah, you heard that term before.
It's Nordy.
A real Belfast phrase, which I'd read before. It comes from the founder of the RIC, the Royal Irish Constabulary, Sir Robert Peel.
Oh, I thought I was going to say because they're orange men.
They're orange men. They're peelers. Yeah, that could have been part of it. But the peelers. But I didn't know like the English term Bobby also comes from Robert Peel.
Oh,
Robert Bobby, the Bobbies.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But there you go. Anyway, they hated the peelers. They were very happy with the fact that like they could drink until they wanted to. There was no licensing laws in the island because there's no guards.
Yeah. And
they lament the other islands. Just if you went over to the island, if you wanted to lock in, you had to sneak in the back door and sit on the ground like an animal. They said that's no living at all. So Messenger said during the period when he was on the island, he came across 8 ongoing family feuds, many of them multi-generational. And one which involved a man who said he was often visited by the ghost of his father, who told him to keep the fight going.
Are these feuds between different families or just families that have broken up over feuds within them?
Between different families.
Yeah, but as in like say like if it was like the
internally.
Hartigans versus the O'Sullivans, or is it like the O'Sullivans versus the O'Sullivans?
Yeah, bit of both. It's got a variety. But yeah, he said most of them...
You shouldn't have been fighting those Hartigans, you dirty Sullivan bastard.
Oh, take that back, you Sullivan son of a bitch. He said, yeah, so in general, like what people argued about, it was unrelated to like courtship. It was never like men fighting over women or anything like that. It was mostly, there was like jealousy or assumptions based on wrong information. Obviously, most of it was about land, but it was a lot of it was based on like just getting the wrong end of the stick. He said the islands...
I wanted that end. I wanted that end of this thing.
The middle end. He said the islanders prided themselves on getting the measure of a man in just one meeting. He said that he told someone once, sometimes it takes me a while to get to know people. Oftentimes I find my first impressions of them are wrong. And when he said that, he said the guy lost all respect for him and said that he was deficient in judging character. And just like wouldn't really talk to him after that. So he
forgot how to speak English.
Yeah, he's just like, that's you're no man at all. But they're just like first impression, and that's it. And that like they'll argue that'll cause the family feud. And he's like, sometimes you get to know someone, you realize he's not such a bad lad after all. I was wrong the first time. He's like, you're fucking, don't talk to me again. You're gone. I was right the first time.
I was wrong about you.
Yeah. I was wrong about you, kid. So in terms of like a caste system, a hierarchy, he said that it was mostly just land.
Okay.
Like people would talk about wealth and health. They're the two things you need. And if you were poor, it was just health. But wealth just meant land.
Which I've always been told your health is your wealth.
But there you go. It's all secular. But like he said, no one lived in fancy houses really, and no one really had any possessions that they're proud of. It was just land. He said like things like strength, courage, who can row the curragh the fastest, farming, knitting. They all like brought a little bit of status, a little bit of prestige, but they were also seen as kind of like old-fashioned ideas, and it was just whoever had the most farm was your pecking order. They also said that like,
but they weren't selling their crops; they were just
subsistent farmers. Yeah, or presumably they did sell like a bit to each other, but there was no. But he also said that there was no like major difference between a family with a lot of land would interact with other land families as much as like there was no division of society really that way.
Okay.
They were all on the same shit island together. He reported that in 1961, approximately a third of the men and a quarter of the women between 55 and 64 had never married.
A third.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Much more than mainland Ireland.
I was going to say, because it's not the fact that they're just off, I'm a bachelor, I'm getting the ride, I want to settle down. They're just not doing anything.
They're not doing anything. Well, we'll get into the
they're
reasons
too closed off for intimate relationships in general.
Yeah.
That companionship.
Yeah. They have companionship. Well, men, we'll get into it now, but men basically have companionship with other men,
the other lads
and
at the
women
bars.
are stuck inside.
Yeah.
And men just want to hang out with the boys, basically.
Well, what's changed?
Yeah, well, he said 2/3 of the men and 2/5 of the women between 25 and 34 were single. So the main thing the Irelanders blamed for lack of marriage was emigration, especially like young girls would emigrate off, and they were like, sure, what chance have you got? Just emigration. But
that was the main one.
They said that was the main one.
Well, people emigrating. I don't want to fall in love in case they leave.
No, they're basically like, sure, there's no women, they've all emigrated.
Sure, there's loads of single women there.
Yeah, well, exactly. But this is again is sort of like they were saying something, and he's looking around and be like, what about what he reckoned it was that the single estate was a major issue. So land couldn't be subdivided when it was passed on. It all needs to be passed on in one. So one person got all the land, all your land.
Okay.
Which meant that it just went to the oldest son. So the oldest son had to wait until his father died or chose to give up his land and give it to him, which
they would
do not like that. And again, these are like old men. Like we're talking about people in their 50s and 60s who've never been married because they're waiting for their dad to die so they can find out. Like they don't want to settle down without the land. And the other lads in their 70s are still like, sure, I'm a young buck. Why would I be signing away with my land?
Yeah, years left.
So
when did that switch? Back in the day, parents wouldn't give you a plot of land when they're 75, and now we buy like iPads for kids when they're 4.
But because it's all they had, if they gave away their land at 75, she could be hanging around for another 15 years. And what are you then? Nothing to nobody.
I always just wanted to provide a better life for my kids than I got. Here, son, you're 2 years of age. Here's a field.
But they also reckon that it could affect their pension as well. If you're in your 50s and the last thing you need, get a load of land in. All of a sudden, less money in the pension. Wait another couple of years, then you're set. Then you get your pension and your land.
But then you get your pension first, and then your dad, who's already still on the pension at 104, will give you the...
Yeah. So then there's also the classic domineering mothers who don't want to lose their son's affection to some whore.
I thought I was just going to say constant nagging.
Well, no, because it's a very segregated society. From an early age, men and women don't really interact. Mm-hmm. This is probably true of a lot of repressed societies. The men and women, eventually, they get married. I think I've written this in more detail later on, but basically, like, the women are stuck at home with nothing but the children, and they dote on the sons to the point where the sons become idiots.
Yeah.
But the Islanders shrug all this stuff off, saying, sure, men don't have enough sense to marry until they're 40. They're basically just still boys.
Do you know what? Like, I'm just saying.
They're not wrong.
I'm just saying.
They're basically, like, their mothers have substituted wives. Like, they're doing all the stuff that, at the time, the traditional wife.
Cooking and cleaning.
And they coddle them.
Having babies for them.
Well, yeah, apart from the sexual stuff, which, but they're basically just, like, Why would you go out and talk to some woman when your mother's at home?
Yeah. Why would
And
you?
also, again, big factor, a lot of them would turn down marriage opportunities because too happy hanging out with the lads.
Yeah. Now, but also it seems like that the women are just at home anyway, so you could marry, leave her at home, and go out with the lads.
Yeah, but why bother? Cut out the middleman. Go out with the lads.
That's true. Why buy the cow when your man will do everything for you at home for free?
Well, again, so the sexual stuff. So Messenger talks about, one of the main driving forces for marriage elsewhere in the world, getting the ride, doesn't apply because of how massively sexually repressed the islanders are. It said they're basically terrified of sex and that it would lead them to turn down marriage proposals.
Wow.
Because they're basically still stunted, pre-teens.
Yeah.
They're terrified by the idea of it, and they're like, "Well, sure, I'm not ready for that."
That's fair.
Is it?
I don't know. For the time, you always hear those stories of. Well, yeah. Any of those. No, you're right. It's very odd.
It is.
Yeah.
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 They just want to hang out with the boys and go fishing. And so the sexes are kept apart from a young age.
But I was just thinking of the 40-year-old virgin.
Yeah.
Or any kind of story like that, where I imagine it just gets to a certain stage where you haven't had the ride by a certain age, so then you build it up in your head, and it's too big of a deal, and you just never do it at all.
Yeah, and there's no culture pushing you towards it, and there's instead a culture of it being sinful and terrible, and there's eternal damnation if you mess it up. The big you know what? I'll just leave that now.
But now you'll probably get into it in a bit. But
yeah.
Did they talk about any of the fornication?
They do.
Okay, because I want to know about that. Is there sheets? Do they have sex between a quilt of tweed? What's going on?
They do. Sex is kept apart from a young age. There's not much exposure between the sexes. And there's a culture of gossip, and overbearing priests means that they have no real chance to get to know each other before marriage. So there's basically no courting. He also describes, which came up in the Banshee of Inisheer, it's one of the pastimes of people is to when it's dark, just hide behind fences and walls to overhear conversations. The whole place seems to be run on gossip, and everyone's terrified about everyone's looking at what their neighbours are doing, and also terrified about people finding out what they're doing.
Nothing's changed. Still
unchanged. But so what would happen is that either the families would arrange a marriage over a couple of weeks, or single men would get locked and get egged on by the other lads after a few pints of stout. And they'd show up at their, the woman of their affection's family home and negotiate for her hand at the middle of the night when they were pissed drunk. So if it was agreed, someone would be sent out to go and get the whiskey, and a party would begin for a couple of days to celebrate. So the old style, before Messenger got there, he said they used to get married straight away that night or the early morning. But he said by the 1950s they had to wait a couple of weeks for a priest to check their ancestry to determine how related they were.
Yes.
Yeah. Small island.
It's a very small island.
Yeah.
Is that true about Iceland having the app?
Apparently,
the Tinder, just to make sure you're not riding your cousin.
There's less people there than there is in this city.
It still happens in Ireland, I guarantee you, or other places where people end up shifting second cousins at discos and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you.
Yeah. No, I used to, every female friend I talk about, my dad would basically do the priest background check, and he'd be like, I'd leave him off for a couple of days, and then he'd come back and be like, she's your third cousin, and yourself, and then just factor that in.
Yeah. Funny enough, she's also your second cousin.
No. So Messenger said that also when he was there was more chat from the young folk about notions like love and knowing your partner. The old lads didn't like that. That wasn't the way of things. So one tradition that, the islanders, some things were repressed, very stupid, very backwards. They weren't all wrong. One of the traditions they had was that neither of the mothers would attend the wedding, the mother of the bride or the groom. It was the bride's mother's job to make sure the bride didn't come home for at least a month after the nuptials. It was referred to as the dragging home ceremony. There was also a strong tradition that the mother-in-law wouldn't enter the new home until the grandchild had been born.
Okay, hold on. Let me get these three again. So the mothers weren't allowed at the wedding.
Yeah.
The mother of the bride had to make sure that she didn't come home
Yeah.
for a month, but also wasn't allowed into the house until they had a kid.
Yes. No, neither mother. I don't think either mother was allowed into the house until they had a kid. No. Yeah, okay, maybe just the mother-in-law.
Okay.
Oh, actually, yeah, sure. The fellow would need his mother to come in and
To do all the
keep
work.
it.
Yeah.
God, Jesus, you couldn't put that pressure on a woman, a new bride, straight away. You need the mother in the house as well to be making sure the coddle is as good as it used to be.
How can you, like, you're not allowed into their house, but you also have to make sure they don't come back to your house?
Yeah, easy. If you see them coming out, hitting them with a broom,
true.
they could meet outside the houses.
Yes.
Now, I wouldn't recommend it,
In their
but
little
it could be done.
In their little circles to find the children that can do the shopping for them.
Exactly. So the general idea that he got was lads didn't
I'm
like.
just thinking of like those kids, just like the Mexican laborers you'll find like in a Home Depot car park. Just people, women driving by. I need 2 people. I need to get some milk and bread. Who's working today?
Who's going? So the general idea that he got was that lads didn't like their wives all that much. They'd rather be out and about working with the boys, drinking in the pub, sailing. The women were basically socially barred from all those activities, so they didn't really like the idea of sex. They wanted children out of loneliness, basically.
Gotcha.
Because they're just left in the house, and there's a lot of stuff that they can't do. Then the cycle will continue. They'd be left in the house with the children. They become overbearing and doting towards their sons. The fathers would then resent the sons because they're never around the house, and now the mother's paying all attention to the son, so the father would fuck off and sail more. And then the Oedipus complex, he talks a lot about. And the Electra complex, I think, is the opposite. I never really heard that before. A mother or a daughter and father. He said that never really happened because the fathers weren't in the house long enough for them, the daughters to attach themselves to them. So the women tended to be like the strong member of the household. They handle the money. They decide things for the family. They like keep the whole thing running. While the men just basically hung out with the lads and went fishing.
Now, I have heard that from years ago of like, that's the way it used to be, that the women would run the household, they'd have the money and all of that.
Yeah.
And then you talk to people a little bit more about it and you realise that what actually was happening was the dad was giving the family, like the mother, like, say 10% of the income.
Oh, yeah.
And then taking the rest down to the pub and spending it there.
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, she was in charge of the money. She was in charge of a pittance.
It's just like The Sopranos, Carmela runs with what she knows.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to know about the income streams. But, so I guess these are some of the more famous paragraphs from this. But in religious matters, he said most people were concerned with the next world and that this one was just for suffering and trying to sin as little as possible.
No,
And of course, it's impossible to not sin. That's off the table. Your only hope as a worthless fucking dog worm like you are is to sin as little as possible, which is still a lot.
But by the new world, do you mean the next world?
The next
is
world.
that like America or heaven?
The heaven.
Ah, okay.
America is sinful. Yeah, he said like the priests tried to convince people not to emigrate, then stay here and just fucking whittle away. This is a quote from him. So traits such as sexual puritanism, hypochondria, depression, masochism,
Yeah.
the M from BDSM,
Yeah.
masochism, conformism, and ambivalence towards authority were all tied into religion. So the one that made his paper famous was his writing on sexual puritanism. He talks about like gossip a lot, as we were saying, like people hiding behind past or fences and like trying to overhear scandal about sex. He said like during the summer, rumors would be flying around about the nude sunbathing tourists and lads trying to get off with them, which Messenger said was basically just like women with bare shoulders coming onto the island and lads getting locked and trying to go up and like talk to them.
Trying to marry them.
Just trying to like, he said hold their hand and kiss them, but it's probably just lads going up and like trying to have a conversation and then the rumor mill just going wild.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest fear of people just being like, I don't know.
Being talked about.
So any forms of like direct or indirect, this is another quote from him anyway, but any forms of direct or indirect sexual expression, masturbation, mutual exploration of bodies, use of either standard or slang words relating to sex, and open urination and defecation were punished severely by word and deed. Everyone remains fully clothed in front of each other at all times, and sexual matters are never discussed in front of children.
Do you think that's their excuse though? That when they're caught getting off with each other, and they're like, "No, I'm a hypochondriac. We're playing doctor."
Well, another thing he says later on is that like a lot of men,
I've got
very
excess
sick.
blood in my.
We said men got very sick and died because they wouldn't go to the doctors because they didn't want the nurse to see them Like, if they had anything that involved taking clothes off, they'd be like, no, just...
Yeah.
Until the point where it was too late, and then they'd show up and was like, yeah. And he said there was another case where a nurse said that she got given out to by... So she treated some man and, like, rubbed ointment on his chest or whatever. And the next day, the mother came in, tore strips off him. So he said his own wife got hushed for, like, she'd be asking people about a pregnancy or whatever. And they'd be like, not when the children are around. And, like, they wouldn't discuss... And then even when the kids were gone, they'd talk about pregnancy, and the women, like, didn't know what was happening, the ins and outs of it.
Mm-hmm.
Although, do you ever hear, like, I Love Lucy, the TV show?
Yeah. Why I oughta.
I don't... Oh, yeah. Is that?
Yeah, I Love Lucy, yeah.
I don't know. But in the 1950s, I think it was the first show they introduced the word, or she was pregnant in real life, and they incorporated that into the story.
Uh-huh.
But before that, like, they hadn't... I don't think they'd used the word pregnancy on, like, American TV. Or they certainly hadn't talked about it in a show like that.
Christ.
Because a lot of this stuff is kind of like he's painting this backward island to be repressed and sexually...
But, yeah.
Then, like, American television in the same decade was, like, just about ready to admit that a woman was pregnant on TV.
Yeah, but at least they had TV.
That is true. And again, a lot of this stuff is kind of like, you wonder, how did he find it out if they're so repressed?
They're codding him.
They could be.
None of this is true.
They could be riding around the clock and he doesn't know. But he said from him and his wife talking to the parents that, like, they're very reluctant to give their children any advice. And the general idea was, like, the conversations of the birds and the bees. The general idea was, like, once they're married, nature will just take its course. They'll figure it out.
Oh, you've been putting it in that hole.
Yeah. Or that the priests would come over for missionaries every couple of years, and they'd figure it out from that. And speaking of missionaries, that was it. What he refers to as the male superior position, which...
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so the famous line from it is that he refers to the island as one of the most sexually naive places in the world. And it shows up on lists of, like, the most sexually repressed places of that time. Churches and beaches are separated from men and women. Which, did you ever... Was that the way in your church? I think by the time we were going to mass as kids, but there was the men's side and the women's side, and my grandparents would still, like, sit on the men and women's side. Yeah,
no.
It was before I was born as well, but there used to be a gate going up to the altar, or like a fence, and women couldn't go past that fence. Like, when that was taken down, that was a fucking ruination of the state, I'd say.
Church hasn't been the same since.
Yeah, so like,
maybe that's what caused it. The decline of the church, not anything they've done.
Taking down those fences. So he said, like, the men, even as badly as they were educated, the men had more of an education about these things. There'd be gossip networks through the lads. He said that, like, women would go up to his wife and ask about menstruation, like grown women ask about menstruation and menopause and stuff, because they had no idea. Because whatever, they're even more isolated. And the men, I suppose, are maybe more out and about and interacting with people coming and going
from the mainland and stuff,
and also have less complicated questions. They're like, what is it? Just there's much more going on in, like, like, people wouldn't know about their periods. The first time they get them, they'd freak out, and their mothers wouldn't want to or know how to explain that sort of stuff. And it's not also, like, one of the main sources of education is the priests. They don't fucking know anything about that either.
Gosh.
Yeah. So yeah, you're on about...
How big is this island?
What, like 300 people?
No, but, like, in terms of the size.
Well, we don't know what island it is. But we'll go there next month. So you're on about sexual adventures between the fellas. There was one fella, a middle-aged bachelor, who was known to be wise in the ways of life in the island and had told stories about getting off with tourists. So Messenger said that he asked him a few questions. He came up to Messenger and asked him...
This is a child on holiday before he goes back into secondary school.
Yeah, man, I
was in Santa Ponza with the family. It was shifting one.
Yeah, you wouldn't fucking know her. She goes to a different county. But he went up and asked Messenger. He was like, yeah, he was talking about one such experience he was having with a woman. He was fondling her and she had a violent bodily reaction to his fondling. And he was like, what was that about? He didn't know that women could come as well.
Uh-huh.
Now... This one feels like it could just be him codding. He was like, yeah, I was fucking going at her there, and she was screaming the heavens down, roaring, scared. What was that about?
Convulsing.
She said it was the best time she ever had. What was that now? All right. That's not so bad.
Well, he wouldn't know what it was if it didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. But...
she just faked it. She just knew. I don't know what's happening, but I know I just feel the need to fake this.
Yeah, that was the only thing that was passed down by women. We won't tell you anything else, but just
At the very end, whenever he finishes, just go.
yeah. Well, so apparently, and again, you wonder like how does he get this information? But he said that sex was undertaken by married couples in the dead of night, with their undergarments still on. The men would finish quickly and then go straight to sleep.
Undergarment. Well, undergarments just means pajamas, though.
Yeah, but he's like they wouldn't fully get nude. But then they're probably not telling him that stuff.
No, and even. What's the overalls, like the big white cotton or linen ones you see like in cowboy movies?
Well,
I imagine that's what people are wearing. And they have holes for the two things you need.
Yeah, but he's like that they would still be wearing those. It's cold.
Yeah. It's in the West.
But yeah, so I don't know. So that's the sort of stuff that got like this paper.
Well, so I assume then that so what we're saying is that this lad knew about those things because he was a peeping Tom.
Yeah, probably.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, it was him and his wife were going around and just asking people questions about this stuff, but I don't know.
No, I mean that lad, not Messenger.
Oh.
No.
The other fella.
The other fella.
Yeah.
He's like, he has to know about that just from hiding under walls.
Yeah.
Or behind walls and, looking in.
Maybe so. But so...
And wait, they have showers.
No, they'd bathe.
I was going to say, you told me the other day that they showered with their clothes on.
No,
just they bathed.
I think they bathed, but then you'd see that even around like Dublin, the baths are separated into like men and like the old Fico baths are out in Clontarf or whatever. The old sheds would be there's a men and women's one.
No, you just went to the boiler room.
Yeah,
it was only men
only. The women.
It's like this is great. None of those nagging women around.
Yeah, but he's
all these guys are so friendly, so complimentary, little handsy.
Yeah, always there. Just there to hold the towel, we're willing to take it no matter what.
What towels?
Yeah, but so the last section then is just on like religion. He said the people, and we touched on these points before, but they're very Catholic, even though they're very critical of like the priest, the bishop, the whole structure. They also like hold on to pagan rituals that the church can't really. They're more spiritual than Catholic, but it kind of latches onto it. But they're worried about like
more spiritual than Catholic. So it is just today. Is the
it
reveal
is
of
like our grandparents would kind of say stuff. They'd be very very religious, but then they'd say stuff about like fairies and like they believed in all that kind of stuff more so, and Catholicism just sort of got like grafted onto that.
Yeah, it's just interesting that people say that now that because no one's willing to say that they're religious or like the Catholic Church or whatever. They'd be like, nah, I'm more spiritual. Yeah. It's like I believe in there's something out there. I'm more of a UFO
conspiracy.
But even that was a thing back then. That's interesting.
Like but that makes sense. That they're more.
Were they also doing yoga?
Well, sure, it goes back to like St. Patrick, just fucking battering Christianity into like, or even like the idea of Christmas is already grafted onto a pagan ritual that was there. It's just sort of like, right, we're not gonna make you believe wholesale what we're selling. You just do what you're doing. Just say amen at the end of it. We'll leave it at that. But like as we were talking at the start, they're much more. They're afraid of the church. So like the priests they all have to go to mass every week, multiple times. The priests will like dole out punishments in the form of specific lectures if someone's done something. He'll do go around house visits to people. He's getting information from touts, scaring children. I mean, children will just say stuff, I suppose, about what's going on in the household. He uses that against the families. And confession, which seems very...
That is...
Yeah, so if people are confessing certain things, he'll take that information and be like, I'm not going to say where I heard this from, but your husband told me that you've been doing this, that, and the other. So they basically are running an information network, and people are scared shitless of them. They're also...
But if they don't believe necessarily, just don't go to confession.
But they believe that they don't like the structure, but they do believe in they do believe in God and heaven and sin and punishment. And they also, but this is again the pagan side of it. They are aware. They think that the priests can curse them. They refer to it as reading the Bible at them, and they're worried that like if you cross the priest, he'll put a curse on you, and it can cause it's ruined many a man.
That's fair.
Caused many a household to fall asunder.
Do you remember doing your first confession?
Not particularly. I've repressed those memories, but I probably could think about it.
I'll confess those memories.
Uh,
But I remember like not really understanding what it was. I was like, oh, so I have to. I didn't have any bad things,
yeah,
so I was like, okay, I better lie here and come up with some bad things I've done,
yeah,
and then get absolved of them,
yeah.
and then leave going, oh shit, I didn't tell him I lied.
But then you got stuff for the next one.
No, never went back.
Everyone back.
No, I probably did at some
Yeah.
point, but it was very odd.
It's such a fucked up thing to like, yeah, get people to, what would you be like, 8, 9, that sort of age, and just spend 6 months of the school year to be like, now think of all the fucking, I know what you are, you rat, weaselly, worm, disgusting child. Think of all the horrible things you've done, and then go in and tell this man in his closed box all about them, and feel bad about it. So they're afraid, so they're afraid of like what the church will do in the next life. But they're also very afraid of what the church will do in this life. So one of the stories the messenger heard was of an unmarried man who stood to inherit some land from his dying mother. But after her death, he found out that the priest had advised his mother to sign over the land to his younger married brother. Oh, he wasn't happy about that.
Oh no.
So he's annoyed.
Is that one of the family disputes? The 8?
No, this one gets sorted pretty quickly. He gets annoyed and he goes to the priest and has words with him. The next day, he's carted off to a mental institution. The young fella.
Oh.
He's released after 6 months, which is apparently the longest amount. It's the longest time the place can keep him without proving there's anything wrong with him. He's fully mentally competent, but it's like, well, you're here for another 6 months anyway. As soon as he gets out, he emigrates off. And everyone was convinced that the priest had orchestrated the man getting detained.
Clearly.
Because it's exactly what happened. Yes. Now, that had happened before he got onto the island, but that was just one of the stories. They'd all tell these sort of stories. And it's like, that's what happens if you cross the priests. So even if they don't like the actual individual priests coming over.
You just got it, yeah.
And they talk a lot about, like, it'd be really young lads coming over from straight out of Maynooth, straight out of the college, with no world experience. And they kind of got the impression that they were annoyed about being stuck on this island as opposed to your fathered heads, but just being sent over, and they don't know anything. And they don't know anything about the world. They don't know anything about like anything really. They're young lads, and they're a bit high on power, and they're stuck on this backward island, and they wanted to have some big position out somewhere, and they're just abusing their power.
Yeah,
and locking lads up for fucking questioning their authority. But one of them had said was, the trouble with Ireland is the priests. They took over after the famine when the population was halved and their number quadrupled, and broke our spirit by preaching damnation and the sinfulness of sex. We came to depend on them instead of ourselves, and today they live off us, but are strangers in our midst. Birds know more about God and his wishes for man than they do. The reason that we flee the country is to escape their control and the dull life they have created. It's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Who wrote this?
Some guy he was talking to. That's the general sense.
See, that's pretty fucking good English for a man who
speaks. Yeah. Well, I maybe. Yeah. See, maybe.
I think what's happened there is
fudging the facts.
Yeah. He's done. Who's the same for? There used to be a journalist for Jack Charlton. Like, he would have been mates with him, but he was doing like a lot of the press stuff. And he would just make up the quotes for him. Then he would talk to him and just flower up the language, because it's, as I say, Jack wouldn't be as silver-tongued as most of the newspapers would have been letting on.
Would have liked them to have been. I get you. Another thing they didn't like about the day-to-day structure of the church was that, and this is the kind of a thing they still sort of do in the parish leaflet nowadays, they print how much money each parish gave. But for like back then, they used to call it out by name or family and how much they donated. So then they play that off each other. And there's no money on the island really, but they're sort of obligated to give it to the church. And then if you're going down that avenue, it's just keeping them poor. Basically means they can't leave.
Yeah.
And it's just robbing them blind. But so Messenger, he quotes another anthropologist's work, Honor Tracy, who'd also done some work with like rural Irish communities, and said there's difficulties getting anything from Irish people because facts in Ireland are very peculiar things. They are rarely allowed to spoil the sweep and flow of conversation. The crabbing effect they have on good talk is eliminated almost entirely. I do not believe myself that the Irishman conveniently ignores their existence, as is sometimes said, so much as that he is blithely unaware of it. He soars above their uninviting surfaces on the wings of his fancy. Fair?
Yeah.
She also goes on to say that we don't offer our opinions, just what we think others want our opinions to be. And then add in the fact that we just lied to strangers for the fun of it. And she's like, it's very difficult to get a grasp on what the fuck is going on over there.
Yeah.
Which is very fair. I think especially strangers coming in and they'd be like, is this the... Oh, Jesus, it is. You're dead right. You're dead right. And if you push them on, I was like, no, actually... I don't know what I think about that, to be honest. I'm just saying things.
But what's that theory that like there's no one self that your personality is whoever you're talking to at the time, and the only real version of you is probably when you're on your own.
Yeah. But even then
But if Irish people are just consistently lying and telling people what they want to hear.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
It's fair. And then, yeah, I suppose a lot of them probably didn't have opinions on certain things, but you kind of want to be seen to be agreeable or, I don't know.
But it's also where the crack came from. Do you know, like this, now people can Google stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, just say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Just like have a good conversation, let it flow. Like your man the other day in the Halfpenny, there was a fellow was chatting to at the bar, and he was talking football. And he was saying about how like this player didn't get selected for the World Cup I won't say in my mind it's pretty racist.
Yeah.
And you just have to be like, yeah, I'm just not going to tell him that guy's injured. That's why he's not been selected. I'm just going to let him go off and say whatever and be like, yeah, fucking why not?
Yeah.
You're just wrong. But if I corrected that, then that's the end of the conversation. And it goes, all right.
That's exactly what you say. Yeah. Don't let that. It stops the flow of conversation. Don't let that happen. Just let it go on. And I find myself just lying to people all the time just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
God.
It really is.
It's fun.
An interesting web we've wove for ourselves here.
Trying to remember all of them.
Yeah, but even just like, from a anthropologist's point of view, just sitting there trying to be like, what the fuck are these men talking about? Jesus, you'd be dead right. You'd be dead right. They're 12 feet tall out in Australia. I remember seeing them there last time I was out in Sydney.
Yeah, fireball.
You told me you've never left the island before. Oh, that's right, yeah. God,
I meant in my mind.
In my mind. There you go. Anyway, that's the story of John Messenger and the island of Inisheer.
He's got through the whole thing without making a "don't shoot the messenger" joke.
I know. I had that written down in there somewhere. I was like, I'll let him have that.
Nah, I said I wouldn't bother.
Well, I guess don't shoot the messenger, but he does.
Did they like it when he published all the reports?
No, exactly.
Did they even read it? Did they?
I'd say the church read it. They probably. Yeah, he does at the start of it. It is an interesting book. It's also very easy to find any of this stuff. If you have a university email, just put it in and they'll send you. Like I did skim read through it because it's about 160 pages. I only found it yesterday, but it is very, very interesting and very funny.
And are we going out to the island?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next summer.
Yeah.
We'll be one of the tourists that get fondled.
Yes. My shoulders are out.
We've got a lot of work ahead of us.
We do. We got some island hopping. But right, is that the end of the episode?
That is the end.
I'm going to read that book.
Yeah. I'll send it to you. But fair play to John and fair play to the people of Inisheer.
Yes, and fair play to Whelan's for having us in for the live podcast on the 14th of December. Go get your tickets.
Yes.
Good luck. Shafter.